All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Beyond the Physics. This is Joseph Guzman. So, today we'll be interviewing my father, John Guzman, and this is meant to be in celebration of Father's Day. It's belated, I know. But so, this is part one in a two-part series. So, you can expect the next episode we'll be interviewing Irene's father, Javier. But in today's conversation, we focus on my father's spiritual journey, which has been prominent throughout all his life. And so naturally, much of the conversation revolves around things like religion, life after death, but we do also squeeze in some politics concerning a potential Trump reelection and abortion. This podcast did turn topical again because around the time we recorded this, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of abortion rights in a Louisiana case, and the links for that are provided in the description. We do also talk about some physics and science concepts like the second law, thermodynamics, and so on. But that's the rough outline for today's conversation. So if that sounds interesting to you, stick around and let's get into today's episode. This is Beyond the Physics. All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Beyond the Physics podcast. This is your host, Joseph Guzman, and I'm joined, as always, with my co-host,
Irene Roman.
And today we have a very special podcast, kind of a late celebration of Father's Day. We have Papa Guzman, my father, John Guzman, with us here today.
Nice to be with you both.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on. I think it's going to be real interesting. But so let's just jump right into it, I guess. You mentioned that you had some questions for us. Was that like as physicists or?
Just questions as a non-scientist to scientists, especially physicists.
Okay. Yeah, let's just start with some of those.
Okay. Well, I hope this doesn't label me as a kook, but I'm also interested in a lot of these. Have you seen the new videos of the UFOs that were taken by the Navy pilots, verified by the Pentagon?
Right. So I've not in detail. Like I've seen the clips, and I know that it was verified by the government more or less.
Right.
But that's the extent. And I guess I have watched Eigenrose in relation to that.
And I've actually listened to some of theirs, Eigenrose, on their ideas on UFOs. But I was just wondering what your take is on these aerial phenomena that seem to function by a physics that we don't understand, that we can't observably explain.
Right.
Do you think that it's a hoax, or it's not a hoax, but I mean.
Right. So, Irene, you want me to just take this one, or do you have any comments?
Yeah, I mean, I have no, I don't keep up with, unfortunately, the UFO videos that have been released or anything, so I didn't even know about this.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, maybe you could correct me if I'm wrong, but what I remember from the video is it kind of looks like a cam from like the pilot's almost perspective, like from
it is.
And he's tracking some object flying through the sky, and I guess it does some pretty crazy maneuvers, right?
Mm-hmm. Actually, if you listen to the pilot's description too, they actually said there was not only one, which they have on the videotape. They said there was a fleet of them. That was the actual term from the pilot themselves. And they seem pretty excited because as pilots, they seem to know how things maneuver and fly, and they thought that they were quite unusual. So.
Right. So unfortunately, I don't know if I have that much of a hot take on this particular issue.
No, that's fine.
But to give my impression of it is, I mean, I think it's interesting, right, that it's verified by the government, right? That's one thing that lends to its credibility. But yeah, I mean, from a physics standpoint, I'd have to look at the video again more in detail, but like uh, the maneuvers would be quite interesting in terms of like just considering things like inertia and stuff like that. Like,
Well, I think what was interesting about that, what the other thing was, there was no rudders, no propulsion that could be seen, and it's not that they were at least the video that I saw, they were really flying in a straight line at this point.
okay,
But no observable means of propulsion, nor was there any sort of aerodynamic things on the craft.
yeah, yeah, okay. I mean,
They were also, of course, going at a very, very high rate of speed.
yeah. So I mean, the only thing that I would want to question is like if we think that those might be aliens, I guess. What would be their motive for coming?
No. I'm not jumping. That's what I'm saying. I'm not jumping to the conclusion that they're aliens or not. I'm just wondering, as scientists, when there's observable phenomena like that that's been going on for so long, that seems that thousands of people have described as things making right-hand turns, which if it was really a craft, no human being would be able to survive the gravity pulls and stuff like that. I was just...
Okay. I mean, I think there's definitely like a strong bias here in terms of first witness reports. I mean, in general, like even in a court of law, I think first witness testimony should not be weighed as heavily as it is. So I think there's a pretty high bar.
I think there's
to
a
clear.
scientific bias on the majority of the community in the science, people to take it seriously. Now, and I think that the scientists that do get ridiculed, or poo-pooed, or they definitely aren't going to get the funding that people who are looking for something like, Higgs boson are going to get.
Well, yeah, I mean,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I mean, I didn't mean to cut you off, but like, I don't know what funding would even come from investigating such a thing like that, right? Like, you don't go to the government and write a proposal on these types of things. If you do say, if I were to take this seriously, right, and try to research it, it would be like a pet project.
Right.
And
that's what they did. I guess they did Bigelow Space. They pet project him for a while for a few measly $100 million. But anyways, I didn't mean to distract, to take this in a direction that Irene doesn't have any input on anyways, but I just wanted to get your idea.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So, anyways, I think it's interesting, and I think I wouldn't take it off the table as like, incredulous or anything. Like, I would be curious to have an analysis done on it and to, get more details on the matter. I don't think it's inherently like,
maybe it's a multiverse. Maybe it's universes touching universes.
I mean, possibly, but that would be much harder to prove than aliens. But
okay,
but yeah. So
you asked me a question.
Okay, well, so I guess we'll just hard segue then.
Yeah.
Right. So we did have a conversation after my very first podcast, right? Where we talked about religion and spirituality and things like that. And so I guess Irene and I are curious to learn more about like your spiritual and religious background and where you stand currently.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if you want to walk us through your whole history or what sounds interesting.
Sure, I'll give you the Reader's Digest version, and then if you have any questions, you're welcome to ask. I grew up in a non-religious household. So, you know, we didn't go to church or anything like that. My father was, I think, Catholic, and my mother was Methodist. But at the time, my mother was remarrying my father. I think she was like married at a young age, 13. She's from Kentucky. I think that was about the time my mother actually ended up leaving school. So she ended up marrying young. And so when my father and her wanted to remarry, the church wouldn't let them unless I think they came up with money, which of course my father found pretty hypocritical. And so no more church for him. So he just left it up to us. If we were interested, we could go. But that never really happened for any of my brothers and sisters. But I was pretty interested. And I would go with friends and stuff to different services, anything from the Jehovah's Witness friends I had. I would go to their temples, and I found it just fascinating. But although I really had never had any kind of spiritual experience, nor do I believe that any experiences like that existed. But I did finally end up meeting a Mormon family, and this was when I was just getting out of high school and getting ready to go to college. I was in meeting them, and they were just a wonderful family. They're great. I found the Mormon community, and so they had me go through all of talking to the missionaries and all that kind of stuff, and did all the teachings, and it was really interesting, but I just couldn't go there. You know, they have some really interesting but bizarre beliefs. You know, it's like an offshoot of Christianity, adding a little more craziness. The Joseph Smith goggles that could see that. Anyways, as much as I love the people, I knew that this was not something that I could, as a rational person, embrace as a lifestyle, or not a lifestyle, as a faith, though. So off to college I went, and found that influenced my life, though. So I started taking philosophy classes, religious studies classes, along with my general astronomy and all that kind of stuff. And I met Joey's mother at that time, and it was really time for investigation. I met exposed to all kinds of ideas, but one of the most life-changing ideas at that point was when Joey's uncle, or my ex-wife's brother, came from MIT for a break, and he had run into the Unification Church, also known as the Moonies, on his stopover in the San Francisco Greyhound. You know, that's where a lot of cults will try to recruit you, because they see kids in backpacks. They see people who seem to be nowhere, you know, not young enough, that probably have no ties, and then they would send young, pretty girls up to you and just charm the pants on you and invite you to dinners. And your uncle got invited, and he went, and so that's how the beginning of my introduction to the Moonies was. I spent a few months there, which was probably, I don't know, I don't even know how to, it's a whole book's full of experiences there, but came out of that kind of worse for the wear on the messianic kind of movements, because Reverend Moon at the time, he was considered a new Jesus. That's how the movement viewed him. So I was really put off by any kind of any movement that would be following that. So I started studying Zen Buddhism, which I practiced for 10 years, which was great, because Zen Buddhism encourages doubt, and all they're really asking for is practice. But after 10 years, one of the main things that I realized is that although I felt like I was getting all this supposed spiritual growth, you know, I had a family, I had a wife and a child, and I felt like I was not participating in my spiritual growth with them. So decided to look again to the church that really I did have an affinity to, and that was Christianity, or the belief that God came as a man to show us how we should live as humans in the form of Jesus Christ. So your mother and I and your little sister went back to the Catholic Church, which I thought was the earliest church, little to my know, little to my little understanding at the time, but that's what I thought was the earliest form of the church. So we were baptized and practiced that for quite a long time. Let's see, what else? Loved the Catholic Church. I thought there was some really neat things about it that I love, and I love some of a lot of the rituals I could see give a lot of comfort. But let's see. Also, I've at one point I went to Mexico and did a shamanistic workshop for 2 weeks outside of the mountains of Mexico City with a follower of, well, not a follower, but an offshoot of the workings of Carlos Castaneda, who wrote many books that you guys may know of, the Teaching of Don Juan, very popular in the 70s. But it was very interesting. We did a lot of ancient Indian practices, running in the dark, all kinds of different things that I knew of because I had done a lot of reading. But so that's kind of my general story. I could tell you right now. I would say that my spiritual life is still one in where I believe in God, and I believe in the basics of Christianity. But I'm more of a deist, I guess. I don't really necessarily I don't need to believe in the literal 6,000 year interpretation of the Bible. The fundamentalism has only been around for about a couple hundred years anyways. So there's a lot of different forms of Christianity that are very rational, and I will stop talking. Any questions about any of that you want to?
Well, I guess there's a lot of questions you could ask, but I guess the first one I would like to ask is what led you to believe in, I guess, a God?
I think that came afterwards. I think my first goal was to try to form a spiritual family somehow. Somehow I wanted to, and that's where I think the Moonies kind of got into my head, which is a good idea. Their idea of perfect thing, the way the planet should work, it should be a father, a wife, in perfect love and unity with their children, and that's what I wanted to have, was a perfect family. Now, if I had any experiences of God that would come from that, wonderful. I wasn't looking for the junkie fix. I had already done LSD and mushrooms and all that kind of stuff in my experimentation in college, so I wasn't looking for that. I was looking for something that was going to be more long-lasting. And so I was just really impressed by the Mormons, and they impressed me how they lived a really good life, a really simple life, and the Mormons kind of took it to a new level for me. And it wasn't just a level where I was going to sit outside and practice from church. We were there 24/7 in the pits. We got up at 5 o'clock in the morning. There was fundraising that started at the break of dawn till midnight. Prayers after that until 1. You sleep maybe 4 hours. No protein. Indoctrination of lectures 24/7. It's pretty hard to, you think you're doing God's work and you're giving it your 100%. So if you do that and you feed into that and you want to do it right, you have to give it all. And same thing happened to me. That's why I ended up leaving them, because one of the things I wouldn't do for the Moonies is they wanted us to what was called fundraise. We'd have to go to the cities. They'd send us on the streets of San Francisco, give us flowers and say, we're from a Christian group, and please give us whatever you can. This money goes to this group and that group, and it's all a lie. It all just went back to our group. they would make thousands of dollars a night, but we would have to lie to do that, and they would call it heavenly deception, which meant that everybody in the outside world was evil anyway. So our justification is, if we lie to them, it's just taking Satan. I wouldn't do that. So they put me on carpet cleaning. If you've ever seen Seinfeld, where that little carpet cleaning cult comes, that's where they're getting it from, the Moonies. I did that for a while because I wouldn't lie on the streets. So they realized I was a problem, I guess, because yeah, I was a questioning kind of person. Doesn't go well in faith-based things, as you guys know.
So what exactly was, I guess, the cracking point when you decided to leave, and how did that work?
Gosh, I think it was when very few people went into the Moonies not aware of that they were Moonies. I mean, knowing that they were Moonies. Most of them did not have an idea. So they were slowly indoctrinated over a course of 3 to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks. I was well aware when I went the first time what I was dealing with. Nobody does that. Nobody steps into a cult knowing what they're doing. And not only did that, I went with my wife, my future wife. Together we joined. And we went and did this together. So people there
So you
were...
knew it. So you knew it was a cult before you joined?
I didn't know it was a cult. What's not a cult? Okay. Everything's a cult. Come on. You know what I mean?
Well,
but,
yeah, I mean, we can go into discussion of definition
exactly.
of cult.
Yeah, and I'm happy to have that discussion because but yeah, no, I knew that it was a group that was, hardcore. This was the hardcore stuff. I'd already experienced it before I really joined with Joey's uncle. We'd already had a short stint, so we left school and we went back. I left the University of California, Santa Cruz. She did. We went back to practice, give it a try. I was forget this religious studies education and philosophy teaching. I was going to do the real thing. I was going to try to. So we went, but I guess the breaking point was, like I said, when we went back as a couple, and everybody was just shocked. No beef. That not only was somebody coming and knowing what was going on, but they were coming in as a couple, because the whole point of their church was marriages. So you've seen their mass marriages. You've seen those pictures so that's the whole point of their religion, is to marry you off in a make a godlike family. So Sandy and I, Korean, and that's the
Sorry,
Israel
you froze
of
for a
their
second
beliefs.
for me.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's
I think
okay.
you froze for a second.
Am I better?
Yeah. What were you saying about?
I was saying that because Sandy, my wife my girlfriend at the time was Korean, they looked favorably on that because Reverend Moon is Korean. All of the chosen people are Korean. They believe that Korea succeeded Israel in this new dispensation, and so now Koreans were the chosen ones. So to have a full-blown Korean and her boyfriend come in knowing what was going on, they were kind of in awe, and we dove into it head first, and we were good people. We had good hearts, and we met some wonderful people, good souls, and loving people that I've never met any other my journeys. But the final breaking point was they knew that I had more questions than my girlfriend at the time, because I came with my Bibles, I came with books, I came with all kinds of stuff. So I had other opinions to read and to feed off of. Nobody else had that. I mean, I must have had 30 books. So I was questioning everything that they said in all of their meetings. And so they knew that I wasn't quite centered, as they said. So they tried to separate my wife, my future wife, and myself. And that was the breaking point. So when they tried to start saying, okay, we don't want John infecting Sandy because we're going to lose Sandy, I had to go to Sandy and say, we knew that. And so we had a talk by the river in this beautiful place. And I told her, hey, let's pray about this one. And we were at this point, we were in this gorgeous little place called Camp K, which is in the middle of Northern California woods. It's where they go to do that. But that night they took us to Berkeley. And so from the Berkeley house, we woke up, Sandy and I woke up at 3 in the morning and left before everybody else gets up at their normal 4. Got hitchhiked home, and that's how we left.
Wow. So you had to run away, right?
Kind of. They wouldn't have let us. They wouldn't have let us walk out. No, would not have happened.
What would have happened if you tried to leave?
Just the peer pressure would have been intense. Oh my God, they would have put us in a room, you know. They wouldn't have physically restrained us, I don't think. But it would have just, these are people that were our friends and who loved us too. And so they would have done everything they thought we were going back into Satan's world. They would have done anything they could have to have stopped that. Anything they could have. So it would have just been, it would have been possible, but I didn't want to try. So I just took the coward's way out, snuck out.
It's not the coward's way out. It seems like you were in a tough situation, so I probably would have done the same. So can you still, I guess you got frozen for a second. Have you kept in contact with any of the people you've met back then?
No, but I have one anecdotal story I thought was interesting. When I moved to El Monte, California, which is where I grew up in Southern California, my wife and I, we were newly married, I guess probably a couple of years, maybe a year. And we were in some just dive of a apartment, but that's all we could afford. We had unfortunately dropped out of college to try to do the religious thing, and that sort of throws you a curveball in life. So now it was time to pick up our lives and figure out what we were going to do. But we knew we loved each other, and we got married. And one day, knocking at my door, somebody from church. So that's 400 miles away, just accidentally, who just happened to come to my apartment door. One of my good friends comes to the door and is fundraising there and sees me and goes, it was just, what do you say? She just says, so I hope you're doing good. That's about all we could say to each other. She was still fully committed. She had that blank-eyed look of somebody who only getting 5 hours of sleep, and there she was in the middle of, like I said at the time, this was not a good apartment. This is a place I did not stay long, in a part of the city that was not good. So she was she was doing the fundraising thing with, I guarantee you that what they do is they have a van of about 12 people just scouring and just they'll get $12 worth of carnations, and they may get $400 or $500 worth of donations from that, depending on how convincing the girls are, or the people who are trying to get the money. And trust me, there's definitely a bonus to being loved if you make more money. And if you don't make a lot of money, those people definitely are looked down upon. It's like the dynamics that go along with it.
Wow. Yeah, I lived with someone for a few years when I lived in Boston, and I guess she was born into the Moonies, so she grew up in that religion. And she seemed like she had pretty bad experiences in general, and she didn't really want to be part of that. And as soon as she could, I guess, after she turned of age, she left. So I think she did talk to me about...
That's unusual, because when...
Yeah?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, you tell me.
No, I'm just saying what's unusual is the fact that she was born into the religion, because you have to, at the time I was involved, this was 1979-ish, 1980. Nobody had been born into the religion. We were the apostles. We were the first wave. That's what we thought. We thought that our teachers were, I was looking at Paul and John and Matthew. And that's what we thought. And we we were fed the line in that, why couldn't it be a Korean Messiah? That's race. I mean, it was a Jewish Messiah. So if God really is sending the next Messiah as Korean, you're going to just say no because of that. So they would just play with us to make us question everything. But I tell you though, you can see some pretty strange things when you only have 4 or 5 hours of sleep month after month.
Yeah.
One time, let me give you this one anecdotal story. A lot of times they would send us, when you're a new recruit, they would have a whole bunch of people, they gather you off the street. Well, they would get crazies sometimes. You don't know who you're getting. So they would get druggies and stuff, or they would just get weird people. So, what they would do is they would bus you into the middle of somewhere really beautiful. You'd sleep the night in some big building, all of you on a sleeping bag, women and men, of course, separated. But if you were a little weird or out there, a little in the middle of the night, a couple of guys, 3 or 4 men would walk in. Somebody in the sleeping bag would get woken up. They'd be gone. Never see them again. I'm sure they just got taken back to the city or whatever and dumped off. But no, they don't want that they don't want that to spoil what they're working on. They don't want that to ruin the chance to have of the group to stay.
Wow.
So if you weren't towing the line, just some night they would just say, "Hey, see you later, buddy. Come with us."
Wow.
Pretty creepy.
Yeah, it is creepy.
Did you see the movie Midsummer?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I'm hoping nothing crazy happened like that, but
no. But I can tell you that that if there had been any kind of conflict in the Korean Peninsula at the time, the 80s, with Reverend Moon at the time being alive, 90s, that whole church would have taken to arms. They would have all gone to Korea, that anyone of them that could have. And they believed in, they would teach you this. If you were ever to be deprogrammed, or if you're ever to be captured, because sometimes people would come to the gate and they would say, "Hey, I'm looking for this person or that." And that happened all the time. And most people were never taken away because there were rights, and they didn't. But some people did get kidnapped off the street when they were doing fundraising. And they taught us this. If you're going to cut yourself like this, you're not going to die. But if you go like this, you will die. So if you want to take your life, if you're being deprogrammed and Satan's going to take you, don't cut your wrists this way. They teach us, just cut it the long way. So we were taught that kind of stuff.
So they taught you.
The odds of that ever happening is not going to. They taught us how to deal with it if we were to get at a point where we were kidnapped or deprogrammed. That was happening all the time in the 70s and 80s.
So did they advocate for you to commit suicide if you were kidnapped and attempted to be deprogrammed, or if you got to a point you were thought, okay, I'm gonna die, or I'm gonna die anyway, so let me commit suicide?
They just made you know that if that's the option that you wanted to take, this is how to do it.
I see. Okay.
And they didn't have any problem with you doing that. But if you were going to do it, here's how to do it, buddy.
Wow.
H is for hospital. That's what it was. H was for hospital, across. So you wanted to, those are the kind of things that were in the back of my mind too when you asked what was the breaking point. Separating me from my future wife, of course, was the breaking point. But I saw a lot of stuff like that. And, and that's what happens in churches. And unfortunately, people of faith will tend to rationalize a lot of things that excuse me, we're buffering. I'll wait.
Oh, it's okay. You're good now.
People of faith tend to rationalize what their congregants do or what we're taught. Just, we all do it. Like I said, the heavenly deception, and or whatever. And even in my present church, beautiful church, messianic Christian movement, but I don't want to see what they say on Facebook. I don't want to know what their real beliefs are about Trump. I don't want to know what their beliefs about black people are. I can pray with you and I will do anything you should, my brother, but I found that knowing that makes it really hard to congregate. You know
What
I mean?
church are you
That's
part
sad.
of now?
It's a messianic Christian church, which in other words means that, as I said, I thought that the Catholic Church was the earliest church, but really the first church was the Jewish church that sprout off of Jesus. The first followers of Jesus were all Jews. It wasn't later till the Christians came in. And it wasn't much later until the Catholic Church changed everything, Sunday Mass and all that stuff. So I actually tried to find the original roots, which is called Hebraic roots, which is a form of Christianity where we keep Sabbath. We celebrate on Saturday. We keep kosher. We keep all of the basic rules that the Gentiles in the early church were asked to keep when they joined. So we keep that. So it's a really nice church, and it feels a spiritual, intellectually very satisfying for me. But like I said, it didn't matter if it was this or if it was the Valley Bible Church down the street. It's just difficult to know what your neighbors think about things and then stand next to them and worship. But if it comes from the pulpit, then it's even more difficult. Then it's time to leave.
So have you heard things like that come from the pulpit in your church?
Yes. Well, what happened in my church was, at the time of Obama, when I first started joining this church, Obama was president, and of course Obama's a Democrat, and of course Democratic position on abortion is not a Christian position. I understand that, but very kind of just, they would nit and pick from the pulpit every once in a while, and I just let it go because I love these people so much. I love the church. It was just, I just didn't say anything. I didn't let them know that, you guys don't know there's an Obama supporter sitting here, a man of color who thinks that our president is a decent, God-fearing man, and I support him, and I hear you guys in the pulpit saying things kind of not mean, but obviously not supportive. So I let it go. But when President Trump became president, and I started seeing the same people who called themselves Christians supporting a man who is obviously not a Christian, that was a tough spill. That's the blue pill.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough position to be in. Right?
It is. What do? You know these people, you love them, and you know that in their heart that this is a racist position that you're taking, and I called them on it at first. I would say, do you realize that I'm a man of color? And and what you said is offensive to me. And they said, and then they would get defensive, of course. How could that? Well, it's not that nobody's racist. None of us are racist, but it still hurts. It still hurts.
Yeah, so I mean, I have a similar situation as most of my extended family here in Florida are, Trump supporters and pretty hardcore Trump supporters. And
Yeah.
I mean, I've grew up with them, visiting them. I love them.
I
They
have no
care
problem
about
with
me.
Trump supporters as long as if they don't preach it from the pulpit or somehow connect into their Christianity. If you want to be a Trump supporter, I understand some of the reasons. I don't even disagree with all of Trump's positions. I disagree with the man.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for me, it's hard though, I guess sometimes to understand how someone could support him regardless of his policies just because of the type of man that he is.
Exactly.
And how toxic he can be to the mentality of our country. So I guess
You have
that is
to
where there's
you have to understand, one of the things that's being preached in the Christian circles, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Is that he's Cyrus. Cyrus is an Old Testament figure who helped free the Jews, who brought them back out of, if I hope I'm getting this correct, but from Babylon. Cyrus was a king. So he freed them. He was not a Jew. He was just, but they looked at him as a Messiah in the sense that he was carrying out God's will. As flawed, as terrible as a ruler Cyrus might have been, he was carrying out. That's how they look at Trump. They compared Trump. They're I think scripturally trying to compare him to King Cyrus, who helped free the Jews. God's using a very flawed man, they think, to do his work.
Well, who is he freeing in their viewpoint?
I think I don't think that he's freeing anybody. Cyrus did, but I think what they're looking at Trump is doing is that he's anti-abortion, he's pro-prayer. That's what we're talking about. It all boils down to abortion. It all boils down to abortion. And I understand, I'm up against abortion. I'm pro woman's life, right to choose, but I'm against abortion. And the government has no point of telling anybody whether they should have an abortion. But it's a very anti-Christian position to have an abortion. But I don't think that supporting Trump to try to get that Supreme Court person on to make this happen is going to help. If people want to have an abortion, they're going to have one, whether the Supreme Court outlaws it or not. When people's hearts are turned against abortion, they'll stop. When women of color have enough money that they don't have to fear having a child because they know they can get a decent job for $15 an hour somewhere, maybe there'll be less abortions. I hear people complain about how many black babies are aborted. Well, give the mothers and fathers a chance.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, this is pretty controversial waters, but if you don't mind talking about it, I'd like to clarify some things.
Sure.
What is it specifically that you find leads you to disagree with abortion?
I believe that it's just, if we can't create life, we shouldn't take it, period. Now, I'm not saying that a woman has been raped. She doesn't have a choice to make that decision. Of course she does. I'm just saying I don't want to see abortion used as contraception.
Right.
Don't have.
Sorry.
Abortion would be, in a perfect world, abortion would be non-existent.
Right. So could you clarify, what do you mean if you can't create a life?
And I just, there's nothing in the Bible that, I'm just saying that for a human being, we know the biologics on how a human being is created, but we can't create anything. I mean, I believe in ahimsa, which is the Indian philosophy of you don't hurt anything. Flowers, bugs, if you don't have to. If I'll carry a fly out, or I take it back, I kill a fly. I'll take a spider outside. I don't kill life if I don't have to, and especially life that has a possibility to, be the next, anyways, somebody very, very special.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So
I'm not dogmatic about that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I'm against abortion, but I'm not dogmatic. I'm just saying it's still the woman's choice. And I don't think, and what irks me is that, I've grown up, I'm old enough to know how the Republican Party started. It started as conservative, government, get out of our lives, low taxes and all that stuff. What have they changed to now? This is not what they were.
Yeah, so the only problem I guess I have with the anti-abortion stance, well, I mean, from a religious perspective, is a lot
Hmm.
of times it the optics seem hypocritical, right?
Hmm.
Like in the Catholic Church, I know it's not really smiled upon to use contraception in general, right? So if
Yeah.
if you're going to say that you're not if you can't use contraception
I don't
and you
believe
can't
that
have
the
an
world is 6,000 years old, and I don't think that the Pope from 14th century needs to explain to me how to how birth control needs to be performed. You know, most people don't follow the Catholic Church's recommendations on birth control. But I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I think the Catholic Church is at least consistent in the sense that they don't believe in the death penalty either. They don't. You shouldn't take a life, no matter, you know, if it's John Wayne Gacy, he should not be put to death based on that. But you know what? You know how the Moonies got past that? Are you? I'm sorry, Joey looks. Am I buffered?
you're frozen but I could hear you.
Okay. Anyways, you know how the Moonies got past it? They believe that life did not believe was life until it was born. So they believed that all abortions were fine. That was their spiritual take on it. I mean, that was so. I mean, I was indoctrinated to that too. So I mean, but for me, being the gentle soul that I am, or wimp, whatever you want to call us, leftist, liberal, I take the Ahimsa approach, and that's that. If you don't have to take life of any kind, you don't do it, especially a baby.
Yeah. I
That's all.
guess to clarify my own stance on,
Hmm.
I guess the underlying philosophy is my metric for suffering requires consciousness, right?
Right.
And um, the science isn't all there yet in terms of what consciousness is, what entities have it, and what entities don't. So there, I understand that there is some gray area there.
Hmm.
Um, so, like, if you're a panpsychist, which is the belief that everything in the universe has some base level of consciousness, like even a rock has some consciousness, but we wouldn't be able to recognize it,
Hmm.
then I could see how, even in that stance, it would be difficult to support the destruction of any cells, right?
Hmm.
But
So
in
you're
my
saying
view,
that the
yeah,
fetus doesn't have pain? Is that what you're saying? I mean, or because it doesn't
yeah,
have consciousness, it's not gonna the pain that it's gonna. If it does register pain, it doesn't matter anyways because it's not doesn't have consciousness. Yeah,
yeah. What I care about is suffering, right?
right.
So, like, if
Life is suffering.
yeah, as the Buddhists say, right? Um,
No, I was quoting the Princess Bride.
oh,
Anybody, anybody who tells you anything else, Princess, is trying to sell you something.
yeah, that's
No, I
no.
was quoting the Buddha. You're right. I'm just messing with you. No, I understand what you're saying, but um, you you just think that it's fine to use as a contraceptive.
Well, in general, I think I agree. I think we would find common ground in that what the the primary focus should be on educating people in terms of how to use contraception, how to
Mhm.
practice safe sex, how
Right,
to have family planning, so
right.
that you eliminate the need for that altogether. Right? I agree that should
Yeah,
be
no, I
the focus. But
Yeah, and to be honest, the logistics for women having an abortion is not that
yeah,
nice of an experience. You wouldn't want to use that as birth control anyway. You know what I mean? So if women knew how,
right.
it could be, it's a in a way, it can be a painstaking procedure. So I wouldn't, if women knew this, maybe, I wouldn't say that that anyone would want that to be their first line of birth control,
Yeah,
right. And also, I want to be considerate to the fact that, like, um, it's a gray area for me in terms of the consciousness of a fetus, depending on, obviously people like to focus on um, how how late term these things are. Do you want to pause? Is the
no, I don't think so.
people want to focus on the dates and stuff, and that does matter. But glancing over that for the time being,
Right.
um, there is clearly a conscious entity in the form of the mother, right? And there's potentially a lot of suffering that could be had should they be forced to carry out to term, in terms of, you know, economic distress and basically perpetuating generations of, you know, economic instability and suffering in that family.
Oh, absolutely. No, absolutely. I mean, I find common ground with you on that. I mean, I understand that. I just, like I said, that I think that, like I said, as a person of faith, just can't see the taking of life. I mean, I don't believe in the death penalty either, so I'm against it. Just for all purposes, no matter what the crime was. So, and I guess it's a holdover from what I think the Catholic Church was right, because, you know, in our belief is that Jesus was an innocent life. See, he's the only innocent life. That's the core of our belief. And so, what else is more innocent than a child or a fetus that has no choice in saying whether they're going to get to have consciousness? So you just have to.
Well,
I'm just trying to be consistent in my.
well, like you said, this is where it might get a little edgy, but there is a philosophy of antinatalism about, like you were saying, life is suffering, right?
Mm-hmm.
For
Of course
me
it is.
personally, I didn't get the choice of being conscious either, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And being alive sometimes feels like suffering, right? And
Oh, it does.
so
Yeah.
either way, you're inflicting suffering. If the fetus is conscious, you are inflicting some type of suffering on that fetus's life. And so I guess it would matter whether you think that child's life would be net positive or net negative in terms of their lived experience.
Always a net positive in the Schrodinger's viewpoint, is it not? I mean, you always have to think that the child could be the. I mean, yeah, he could be the next, you know, Ted Bundy, but it also could be the next, you know, Einstein. So, but it's not our job. It's not. I mean, if we knew how to create it, we should be able to take it and, you know, it's not a robot. You know, all we know is that by some miracle of biology, people are able to have a baby, and because we're such smart little simians, we know how to stop that at any point we want, because we, you know, and I think that I have no problem with, even, you know, and this is where it's going to even get even more tricky. I even have no problem with women having to be counseled before they have an abortion. They can't. I don't think a 16-year-old should be able to make that choice without her parents. I don't think. I think if you're a person that's going to do it, maybe you should at least have to, you know, be counseled before that birth is taken. Then, if you want to do that, then it's between you and you. You know, I'm not saying that you have to believe in my God and that you have to not have an abortion. But I would say that you have to, if you're going to take the life of a fetus, you should at least be can then do whatever, you know, the Constitution allows in this country, which is freedom of choice.
So when you say counsel, typically that's in the context is normally like the parents. Is that what you mean, or do you mean like a medical advisor or something, or
Counselor, therapist, or what?
No, not a counselor or therapist, but I think that any abortion clinics should have somebody where before that person, they just talk to someone. That's all. And they say, hey, your baby's at this week. This is what, you know, blah, blah, blah. And just talk to them as a human being. And then after they do that, however that process goes, if the woman wants to proceed forward, she can. But I don't think that we should willy-nilly just be able to go schedule it at the clinic where you don't even talk to anybody. You just go in and it's like, it'll be over in a minute, honey.
well, I'm not sure how. Oh, sorry. Looks like you're frozen. Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Oh,
No,
okay, right,
yeah, I can hear you.
right. So I don't know the intricacies of the procedure. I haven't undergone one myself, um, but I don't know how realistic that picture is. Like, I feel like if you were to go into a clinic,
Mhm.
they would definitely have a conversation with you about it, at least.
You don't think that they're just appointments scheduled, Joe, and you just lay on the table?
No, I don't. I mean, I think
Oh,
you could make an appointment, but
I mean, first off, if you're a pregnant woman, they're going to be, first off, they have to do an ultrasound to see what week you're on. And during that visit, the doctor would be speaking to you about your options. So in that case, they have a conversation. And then you choose with your choice, and
yeah,
then you
trust me.
proceed those
I
steps.
work for doctors, and I would tell you that sure, you're going to have you're going to have that kind doctor who's really going to have the conversation that I'm talking about, but you're going to have most doctors who's just going to say, this is the, I got next patient. They're just going to go, okay, here's your options. Next patient. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about abortion clinics, but I work in medicine, and like some doctors give you time and love and counseling, and some doctors they'll give you their knowledge, and it's next patient. And that's what I'm talking about. I just think that conversation when it comes to a human life should be had by someone caring that would just say, hey, you sure you want to do this? Then, well, let me ask you these, a woman, preferably, of course, not the doctor who may be a male. That's all.
sure. Okay. Yeah, I mean,
But
in general, I think I could agree with that. But
I mean,
one,
I personally don't know that experience, right? Because I haven't been pregnant or anything. But from my experience of going to women clinics in general, because I've been to a Planned Parenthood looking to get some contraception, and even when I go in my OB or what is it called, OBGYN, they have always been
yeah,
very caring and talked to me and given me details about
yeah,
everything,
yeah.
basically.
Well, that's good. Yeah, well, look, unfortunately, our government is making those harder and harder to find throughout the country, making it harder for women to get that access. So, I don't agree with that either. I totally agree that Planned is a great thing. That may send my Catholic soul to hell, but I think I'll take the chance.
right.
Just sorry.
No, it's okay. Right. Just one other thing on the topic is
Yeah,
not everyone shares your perspective, your optimism towards the future of the planet, the Earth, of the next potential child you give birth to, right?
right.
Like, yeah, I'm not going to name names, but someone we both know, right, is
Yes.
much more pessimistic about uh, prospects of the
The world.
future,
Yeah.
right? And she thinks it would be irresponsible to bring a child into this world where she feels fairly confident that there's going to be much more suffering than in her lifetime. Right?
Yeah. Well, I would think anybody that intelligent also is intelligent enough to use birth control. So I'm not worried about that person. I'm worried about others. But I understand what you're saying. So if that person was to get pregnant, though, what would I say to them? I would say, please put it up for adoption. But if that's not an option, of course, this is a woman's decision. It's a woman's body, and legislation should never be made where a woman's body is legislated by men, especially. So there are some religious people who believe that. So
Okay, so I mean, I didn't plan to go down this rabbit hole, but
yeah,
that's
well, that's
okay.
interesting. I mean, I don't ever get a chance much to just because people are so defensive about this. But like I said, that's the whole purpose of. That was the whole reason I ended up having to stop Facebook was because I saw that so much of our faith is now getting tied up with politics, and it's just sad. So I figure I'm gonna do like the monks, and I'm just not gonna. It's better not to know my
Yeah,
brother as well as I might want to.
right. But so I guess
Mhm.
I think we could wrap up that little
Yeah.
segue. But there was one thing I want to double back to. When you were recounting your spiritual journey, that seemed interesting. Is you mentioned when you left the Moonies that you felt it kind of turned you off from the messianic religions, right?
Right.
And then it kind of just seemed like a sharp transition after Zen Buddhism to Catholicism. So I guess, oh,
Catholic.
sorry, right,
No.
a sharp transition to Catholicism. So I guess I was wondering what brought you back to the messianic religions, and
Well, like I said, the whole purpose, like I said, after 10 years of practice, um, your mom did it with me at first. We would go down to the Zen Center and we would sit and we would do sessions, which would be weekend-long, completely meditative silence things, and that was wonderful. And but when we moved to Northern California, and we had your sister, she the Zen Center was miles away, so I had to like travel, and we couldn't really take your sister. So I was still practicing, and she wasn't as keen. I think your mom, more spiritually, was kind of like she would do what I was doing. You know, she was just really supportive that way. Whether she, you know, she would at least look into it, and so she supported me. But I had to go all the way to a Zen Center that was in called Murphy's, which is 20, 30 miles away now. And I did that for a long time, but you know, um, I wanted my spiritual life to involve my family. I had a family now. And so, it's like, what good is it for me to be enlightened if my family wasn't enjoying in my supposed spiritual journey? And also, I think one of the reasons that I turned away from Buddhism and I leaned toward Christianity is that what I found with Buddhism is after a decade of trying, and I tried hard, and I practiced is daily. I hate to say it because Buddhism is not religious, but I practice religiously, my zazen and all that. At the end, I found out that I needed a savior. I wasn't good enough. I was never going to have that Satori moment that the Buddhists have. I was never going to be good enough to be some of the guides that I had followed in my Buddhist. I wasn't that good. I wasn't that sharp. I couldn't do it. I knew that I needed someone else. And this is going to seem weird to you, Joey, I know, but the need of a savior is like, I feel like God can expect me to, there's no way, if there is an infinite being, there's no way that he expects me to reach him on my own bootstraps, because it ain't gonna happen. But he can require of me that I put in, I don't know if I'm put in my 10%, which is 100% of my effort. And that's where Jesus comes in. And that's where Jesus comes in and says that you guys are never going to get it. You can't reach enlightenment. You're not going to know the meaning of life. It's suffering. I can show you how to live it the best you can. Believe in me, and I promise you that the next multiverse, or as Jesus says, he has many mansions, will be with him. And so I believe that. As a matter of faith, of course, and I know how scientists look on faith. I don't have empirical evidence, and I'll never have empirical evidence for that. But I do believe that in my spiritual journey, I learned that I'm never going to get there on my own. And I do believe that the need of a savior is a thing for a lot of human beings. We feel that need, that somebody else is going to have to carry us over the line because we're never going to get there.
Why, in a way, that viewpoint seems like self-limiting. So I guess my question to you is, why are you imposing that on yourself? What about your experience is telling you that you can't reach that state yourself? Why do you need to create?
I'm not talking. I think that something that you guys aren't looking at myself. I think that if you face that same question, it's not self-limiting at all. It's freeing in the sense that if you're on a spiritual journey, which I know Joey is not, and everybody has a different spiritual journey, but if you're on a spiritual journey, then to know that you don't have to be perfect, the fact that that when you do something, I think a lot of people come to Christianity because of crisis. They did something so terrible. They killed somebody in a car or whatever, and it changes their life, and they come to Jesus moment. I never had a come to Jesus moment. I just knew that I wasn't going to be able to reach Satori through the Buddhist method. I knew that I wanted a salvation that would involve my family, just like I did when I was in the Moonies. And I just felt that that's not self-limiting. That's freeing in the sense that I don't have to. I can get up the next day and forgive myself for whatever thing I did wrong, and it kind of it gives you a chance to renew each day.
So
Yeah. Well, I did want to just make one comment that.
Go ahead. No, please.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you think it's limiting? I mean.
Yeah, it's great to hear you and your perspective on it for sure. I mean, I guess I just have a different perspective, and I would say I am a spiritual person. Mm-hmm. I grew up in the Catholic Church, but I didn't really feel like that was a fit for me.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, some of the, like you said, what they speak in the pulpit really can, in my case, kind of pushed me away because they spoke against gay rights, and I was someone who was discovering my sexuality then, and now I know that I'm queer. I identify as queer. And so I didn't really see, that's just one of the values I didn't see that I aligned with. And so I decided to remove myself from the Catholic Church. Mm-hmm. And I guess my spiritual journey, though, has been very much internal and personal, where I didn't really look much of outside sources to find a path. I feel like I kind of maybe, I don't know if I would say intuitively or what, I did get some input from outside sources, but not an extreme amount. And I feel like I kind of just naturally gravitated towards, let's see, a connection to all beings, to nature, to the point of, I think my journey through physics has also, in a way, defined things about what I feel is rules our existence in a way that I could never see it in any religion. Whereas my definition of God would no longer be something. Well, I guess later you can tell me what your definition of God is, and then we can compare. But my definition of God would be strictly in a physical sense, as in the definition of all energy, and which would basically be like, let's say, this 0 point where existence emerges from. And in that case, I don't see it, God, as anything that is causing, that can cause anything through intention. It's probabilistic, it's random. The life that we lead throughout from our experience right now has already been predetermined, but it is also random, whereas there could be an infinite number of predetermined lives that we could live, and this is the one that we do live. And for me, I feel this kind of conceptualization of existence is enough. It feels correct and it feels right for me. And I feel...
So do you believe in time plus matter plus chance, huh?
Is that what it is? Time plus matter plus chance?
I don't know. So that's what I kind of feel. I think a lot of scientists believe about the creation of life is just they explain, somebody said, give me one miracle, the Big Bang, and we'll explain the rest. That's what physicists do.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. Like over time, this phenomenon will emerge at some point. Because if the thing's infinitely long
Right.
time-wise,
Yeah.
then everything has to occur at some point. Yeah, I
Right.
guess, yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I could see that I view the world that way. But at the same time, I guess what I want to get at is that I've had experiences in my life that have felt very profound, that
Hmm.
feel enlightened, that feel deeply spiritual,
Oh,
right?
I believe that you and Joey have done exactly what I sublimated the fact that I couldn't do the math to become an astronomer by doing an internal search. That's what happened to me. When I got to college, I realized that as much as I wanted to be an astronomer, which is what I did, I mean, I couldn't do the math. I wasn't going to be able to get past, you know, the basics. So my search, I internalized that search. And I think you guys, your spiritual journey is by learning the universe and by, and you know, I'm sure when you really figure something out, that has got to be similar to what anybody has in a meditative state where, or, you know, any kind of, it's got to release endorphins and feel great. So I think that's why I think that's what you guys do. And that's why I'm so in awe of what scientists do. See, people of faith don't really have the basic. Most of us, you know, there's a lot of engineers in my church. I wonder how they recognize that. But most of us are not math illiterate. Look at all the people who don't wear the masks because they're religious and they think they're following, you know, Cyrus.
I
And that's
mean, but the thing is that the math isn't what led me to my spirituality. I mean, the math isn't what that's led me to these experiences that I feel have been profound in my life. I mean, that has just been me being in tune with the energies around me, I guess.
mm-hmm.
So that's something that I don't think you
No,
have to be a specific level of mathematical knowledge or ability to be able to reach
yeah.
that, I guess is what I mean.
Well, and I think what you found out of when you said you left the Catholic Church is the same thing that, you know, I kind of found out because I've been in very many different churches, and the it's the congregants and the beliefs, you know, in any church are going to drive so many people away, unfortunately. That's just the state of the way it is. And hopefully, who knows, you know, maybe the paradigm's going to shift and something, you know, some sort of religious, philosophical, scientific thing will happen. New age of Aquarius in your generation. I hope so, because, you know, with all this stuff you guys are releasing in physics, we're still as tribal as we were 300-400 years ago, and it's kind of scary.
Well, I mean, I think that's because there's a disconnection between the scientists and, you
The
know, the
people.
others who don't. And that's partly because of the scientists' fault and not helping make a bridge between communication between these two types of people or areas in society. And I mean, and I think that it's partly fear of something that's unknown, that's something new, that's challenging these belief systems that a group of people have had for like, I don't know, decades,
Yeah.
centuries even.
No, you're right.
And it's scary, right? Because that's so ingrained in their identity. And then all of a sudden you're showing them something new and they feel like it attacks them. Like personally,
Right.
it's them that's being
That's what it
attacked.
is.
And that's not something that I want to do as a scientist. I want to show people this truth or what I see, what I've learned, in a way that's not threatening. And that I think that's something that us as scientists need to start looking into. How can we present our information in a way that is not threatening, and also come off as not elitist? Because a
That's the
lot of
problem.
our community, it's like, oh, we're so great, we're so smart, and I think that we, I don't know, the way that we speak to people isn't really.
Well, you know, I heard of you guys talking about the toxic relationships sometimes you guys have between the people in your department. I
Yeah.
think that if you guys feel that, just think how the general public feels a step down from there, 2 steps down, from 3 steps down from there. We feel like scientists, not, and I'm not talking personally, but I think the general person feels like scientists don't give a crap about them and don't even think that they should even talk to them, you know, because they would have to like die it down so far that they wouldn't even enjoy a conversation with the average Joe. Now, and I know that's not true in all cases, but I think professors are that way with you guys.
So, what do you think is a way to fix that? Like,
I think we need more access to real people in the media and like TV shows and stuff, instead of the Big Bang Theory. Real people who are actually smart and intelligent, who are actually, you know, I don't know. It just seems that the worst thing I think that I've seen as you know, and I don't even know we want to go now. Social media is just screwing everything up, you guys. It's screwing everything up. And people believe what they read on Facebook. I mean, how do you have a conversation with somebody about science or politics or religion when their information they're getting is from Facebook? I mean, how do you really have a conversation with them? You know, and the movies, I mean, there are all these Marvel movies now that show science. All they have done, all they pro that science has done is made robots, or we've got superheroes that with Iron Man suits, and they're still capitalist, you know. Then I don't know, just, but I think that maybe the new generation of people, you know, when they get in the media, maybe they'll make more programs that will show people of that. It people. I remember when I was a kid, people used to get mad at the smart kids. Isn't that stupid? Why do people get mad at the smart kids? I don't understand it. It's part of human nature, I guess. They were, you know, and some of the kids that were smart would actually retard their growth in the sense of their studies, because they would be so intimidated they would hang out with the gang members. I grew up in a, you know, a lower middle class neighborhood, and there were kids that were that way, that they were harassed for hanging out with those that were studying or trying to do better, and they would end up just hanging out with the kids that they felt protected by.
Yeah, I mean,
Because,
oh, sorry,
go ahead.
but I was just gonna say I kind of relate to that experience. Is growing up, I was very intimidated to try and express any intellectualism. I guess as a kid, I found myself thinking deeply about like the universe and our place in it, and I felt like it was too serious for my peer group, and they couldn't relate. Right, it was my perception of it. I don't know how accurate that is, but because of that, because of that perception, I never felt
I
comfortable to
met your peer
actually.
group. It's accurate.
But yeah, so I never felt comfortable to like explore my intellectualism, or just feel comfortable being trying to, you know, um,
There's not many outlets.
yeah. And so it was only, you know, in high school that I had like, you know, some experience where it convinced me that, oh, I can be smart and people can still like me at the same
Right,
time, you know,
right. Yeah.
that there's kind of like a big change in terms of my mindset, and
Yeah.
um, eventually let me break out of that barrier that was implicit in the culture. Right?
Do you wish you had broken out of it earlier?
Um,
Or was it just naturally
yeah,
meant to happen then?
it's hard to say, right? I mean, it's like part of it, you know, it's like I said, I'm kind of assuming what my friends are thinking. I don't know what's going on underneath in
Right.
their heads, right? So maybe if I was more honest and forthcoming, you know, things would have been different. I don't know, but it could also have been an accurate perception, and then it would have just pushed me further down the hole. So who knows?
I think there were certain friends of yours that I know, they would have even understood what the heck you were talking about, but I'm sure I don't know all your friends. But that's a pretty hard subject to breach with anybody who's younger, I think.
Yeah.
you almost have to have that with them. But I mean, that's not necessarily always the case. But hey, can I ask you guys a question about what do you think if President Trump gets elected again? If he gets elected again, and I don't mean to go into, but would you do anything like, would it make you want to protest? Would you do anything about it, or would you just let it, it's not in your world. You guys are in your own little bubble there, and I'm just saying though, is there any point where you would get in the streets, because you're students? I still consider you guys students.
I think it would depend on the circumstances of his victory, right? Because I already see him complaining about mail-in ballots, right? Despite the evidence contrary, So if, say, somehow he bans mail-in ballots, that's one step that I think would lead to a fraudulent election.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if he crossed a threshold, would it put you in the streets?
I don't know how effective that would be. If there was,
is Tallahassee a conservative or mixed campus? What's it like?
I would say it's more liberal in terms of, because of the university that we have, I think is more liberal than conservative. So I think since the largest population of people here are the university students, then we're just like a little bit of a liberal.
I mean, if it was organized, I think that was a problem with the original riots. They weren't organized. But I mean, if there was something organized, I was just wondering if you would actually, if you feel that touches your lives enough that you would actually get you out on the streets.
Yeah, so I mean, I think at this point, I personally feel like a lot of times people in academia and scientists have kind of just sat on the sidelines and said, it's not really we don't have to really deal with this. It's not really our problem. Let the politicians do their thing. But I think that's harmful. At this point, I think that we need to be finding a way that we can use our talents to help society. I don't know whether it's that effective for specifically how effective it is to just be on the streets and doing the protest. And if there needs to be more people, then yeah, I think that's helpful. But I mean, it's frustrating that the protests aren't having as much of an effect as I feel they should have. So I want to find ways that I can actually use my skills as a physicist and also just the way that I think to make some form of change or organize some groups to do something. I don't know what that is yet, but I'm getting to the point where I'm trying to think of some ways that either form committees or ways that we can organize and send suggestions to government I mean, I went to from Wellesley, I have a lot of friends who are into politics, so like reaching out to them and seeing what are they up to, how can I help you, what do you think we should be doing, get their opinions. So
it's just strange, I see that climate change for me is like the most important issue, and I just, if it's not going to affect me, I'll be long gone. And I just see so many, I just don't understand why there's so many millions of young people just don't care. Just don't care. I mean, I was telling Joey, I think I watched my first Democratic convention when I was 8 years old with my dad, and I've watched everyone since. So, I mean, I was in, I always thought politics and stuff was real important, and I always wanted to, but it just doesn't seem like most people even care to vote these days. It's so sad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I think it's important, and it's just frustrating that I feel like the views that I have, and actually a lot of people of my generation, views that we have are not being listened to, like the changes that we want, it's kind of like they're being dismissed. Like the progressive Democrats, I think they haven't gotten as much of a chance to be in the game as they should, because our whole generation, a lot of people, the millennials, do, they believe in the values of the progressive Democrats. And it's just frustrating to be trying to say, hey, listen, this is, trying to get representation, and we're not really getting there, right?
You just need more of us old guys to die off. Mitch McConnell.
I don't want to say that, but
Lindsey
you said it.
Graham.
So.
No, it's true. Absolutely. No, that's exactly what happens. It has to be just a generational change. The old guard has to go. But the only problem is that I see that have to understand that power never lets go, and there's a lot of gerrymandering that's going to go. So it's going to take a lot. You know, the first thing you guys need to do is figure out a way to ban the electoral college somehow.
Yeah, I would love that.
You start with that. Let's really get majority vote. But I don't know. I was just wondering, how about you, Joy?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I have much to add. Like, I kind of agree with Irene's position. I think it would be a travesty for the country if that happened. But yeah, I would question the effectiveness of me being out on the streets when I feel like in our tool set, we can make some pretty strong objective arguments through, like, you know, looking at data or, you know, anyways, I think there's a lot of different avenues that we could be more effective, is what I'm saying.
Taking like, to the streets, yeah. Wow.
Yeah. But
wow.
if that was necessary, and it seemed like...
well, I can tell you this is the first time in my life that I'm considering that if something was really to happen like that, if the votes does seem to be irregular, there's nothing else you can really do is just peacefully get out on the street and protest. So you may see my, you know, look for the Lancaster broadcast. You'll see your dad in handcuffs.
With your mask, right?
With my mask. I'll be socially distanced. No.
That's good.
So let's see what else. Because I wanted to know if there's anything else I wanted to talk to you guys about. You know what I heard that was so funny? I just wanted to share with this guy. Guy was talking about axioms of physics axioms, you know, just basic things that are axioms of physics, not really more than that, but, and how he said that a lot of physicists do what he calls intellectual phase locking about topics, which means they all get together and they kind of like phase lock that this is the way it's really going to be, but even though it may not be that way. Is there any truth to that, or do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine the context and what the words mean. I don't know. I don't know if Irene has some more experience in this, because I'm having trouble thinking of any specific examples. But
I mean, it just seems like sometimes, for example, they'll come up with an idea about anything, at speed of light or something. And it's an axiom, right? It's not, I mean, the measurements might change over time, but you can't just change, you know, so maybe the speed of light does change its speed, maybe, but it's given as an axiom that the speed of light's always the same. Well, I know we've measured, I'm sorry, one more thing, but I know we've measured it at different times where it's different. You know, sometimes they'll measure it at slightly, and then they'll say, oh, well, we can just fix that by saying, well, whatever the new measurement is, that's the speed of light, you know.
Right. Well, I mean, I wouldn't call the speed of light an axiom. I would say that the axioms of physics are more fundamental than that. So an axiom, just to clarify, is just something that you take as true. Because so examples I could think of axioms are like in cosmology, like the cosmological principle is an axiom. What it says is that basically our position in the universe is nowhere special, right? That the universe is homogeneous and isotropic, meaning that it looks the same in any direction, and throughout space. So that doesn't necessarily have to be true. It could be that we're in a special place in the universe, but it's just what physicists consider it's like a reasonable assumption, right? Given what we see throughout the universe, we see no evidence to suggest that we're special, right? So that's why we take it as an axiom. Whereas something like the speed of light is
a law, right?
It's a direct consequence from laws of physics that can be theoretically determined, right? From mathematics. That's a little more, I'd say that's on much firmer ground
Right.
than
Than the
something
other.
like,
Right.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But and
Speaking of
that,
that, I wanted to
yeah,
talk to you. I don't mean to shift too hard, but that was one of the things I did want to talk to you about. It was I believe that we are alone in the universe, and I don't believe that because of from a religious standpoint. I believe that from a scientific. My scientific intuition of that is that I think the barriers to life are a lot greater than we think, and I think that let alone Goldilocks, jive, and all that, you got to have stable planets, stable rotations, stable climate for eons, space disasters. I just think that the reason we haven't seen anything from SETI or otherwise is there is nobody else but us. And maybe that's why the original people, Earth people, maybe they were right that we are the center of the universe. So it's just
yeah, in that sense. I mean, so we had a discussion about this with Sahana. I think that was our fourth episode. But to rehash some of those points, is I took a astrobiology course, right? And we had to do our own estimate for the Drake equation, right?
yeah. I think you told me a little bit about that. Yes.
Yeah, the founder of SETI, right?
Mm-hmm.
And basically, this equation is meant to determine the number of intelligent civilizations in the galaxy or the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very rough equation. The uncertainties on them are
Yeah.
massive because they're just like,
Of
we have no
course.
data,
Right.
right?
Did you come up with a very large number or a very small number?
When I ran the calculation using my estimates, I got in the Milky Way up throughout 13.7 billion years, there have been two intelligent civilizations.
There you go. All right.
Right. So um, if that's the case, then the other one could be so far away that it'll take a long time to see their signals, or it could be that in the 13.7 billion years they died out.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it seems possible that we're very rare, right? That
Yeah, that's what I think too. I think rare on a religious scale.
yeah. So I mean, I think I take that as kind of. I think that puts more responsibility on humanity to try to not. Well, I was going to curse, but I'll avoid the temptation to not blow up the planet, right?
Right.
And to try to preserve what could be a very unique
Yeah.
feature of the universe.
No, I mean, absolutely. The way I think is that I think this is the starting point, man. I mean, this is our chance to actually spread out through the galaxy. I don't think that, I think you're off by one, but I think it's our chance from this point forward to spread in the galaxy. We are the original spot, my friends. And I believe that not only that, the way I look at it is, I don't think Adam and Eve, for example, were the first uh, humanoids, human-looking people, but I do believe that it's possible that something, creator, I will say, imbued a set of creatures, either it was man or woman or both, with the idea of morals, I mean, good and evil, whatever you want to know, binary thought. There's this or that in the universe, and I think that was a divine inspiration from. I think it's more likely than the monolith in 2001, but just slightly more.
Well, I mean, so would you say that something like a chimpanzee or a gorilla has a set of morals?
I do believe they care for but I don't. I mean, consciousness. I mean, you could not just morals. I mean, take a step up from that. I mean, just self-awareness, whatever you want to make us. No, as I said, but like I said, I agree with. I wanted to ask you about your ideas of the number of people, how many number of civilizations of the galaxy. And even if there were two, like I said, what's the odds that they're going to be alive? They're simultaneously going to be able to talk to each other, right? So this was over at 13.8
Yeah.
billion years. You did it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, not just the life of the galaxy. Even.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's interesting. Okay, so.
But I mean, there were some strong constraints in terms of that intelligence factor and being able to communicate.
Right.
So,
well, I mean, there's
I
a
think,
lot of intelligent creatures, elephants, ravens. I mean, intelligence
yeah,
defined as
Dolphins.
yeah, I consider those creatures in my
dolphins,
calculation.
of course.
But I just mean like astrobiologists are probably much more optimistic about finding like just more basic life forms, like under the
right.
ice of Europa, finding
Exactly. Right.
like single-celled organisms or things like that.
Right. So, question about again, we'll circle back to the creation of the universe. If Newton's laws of thermodynamics, second law says everything kind of dissipates, how do we get complexity? How does that work? Just time? Is that the answer? And it's going to all revert back to that?
Right. So that's not Newton. That's just the second law of thermodynamics.
Okay.
Right.
But how does that work? Explain it to a layman.
Sure. I mean, I kind of love my identity has somehow become entwined with entropy, with the equation. I love that equation. But so I think Sean Carroll has a really good explanation for this type of stuff that I'll try and replicate. Basically, complexity is like the middle stage of the evolution of a lot of processes, right? So if you think about like a cup of coffee and creamer, right? When you first put the creamer on, say they have a different density, they will be fully separated, right? That's a very organized system, right? You have the coffee and then you have the layer of cream, and they're completely separated, just for example. Then say you start to stir the coffee, you see a lot of vortices and a lot of turbulence. You see very complex behavior inside of the coffee cup. And that's as the thing is mixing. And then once you keep mixing and then
it settles.
Yeah, eventually it's going to be fully homogeneous. It's going to be fully mixed through, and it's going to look just like one substance again, right? And that's the way energy tends to distribute itself throughout the universe, right? So say you have the genesis of some energy, some perturbation, some, keeping it layman, say you have some energy that props up and it's next to some areas of space where there is no energy, it's going to tend to spread out.
Okay.
Right? Just like
Fill
the
a vacuum.
creamer. Yeah. Just like the creamer tends to spread throughout the coffee. Energy doesn't like to be clumped up, basically, is what it does. It's going to want to try to equilibrate and reach a steady state with its environment.
Okay.
And
I understand that.
So just through that mixing process, a lot of complexity emerges, right? Enough complexity for, stars, planets, moons, humans, etc.
Right.
And we're all just the means to help speed up that equilibrating process, right? Humans like introduce much more entropy into the universe than, say, does like some diffuse gas in the universe. So we're all just like middlemen stirring the coffee pot until the universe is fully homogeneous.
Right. Wow. I don't know that that's very inspiring for my existence, but
it sounds inspiring to me.
Yeah, no, I mean, no, it probably does. See? That's pretty cool, though. Yeah. So, does that? Well, I guess that happens in micro and macro versions all throughout the universe, then, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you could see this behavior everywhere. I mean, I don't know if I made this up, but yeah. So basically, I thought it was Einstein. It could be some other scientist, but basically, they said like as long as your law of physics obeys, the second law of thermodynamics, it's probably in good standing. If it
Okay.
disobeys it, then you're probably on some
Well,
flimsy footing.
swims the ground. It's interesting. Oh, that's cool.
So it's like one of the most fundamental and like one of the most interesting concepts in physics for me.
Yeah. Have either of you guys ever like looked into um, Jungian thought or any of those kind of psychological kind of
I've heard only from you, only the
only
details
for
from
me?
you.
Oh, I just
Yeah.
wondered.
Like what?
I think one of the main things that was impressed me about Jung was he had an idea of collective unconscious. And that was that there's an actual unconscious that is passed down through genetic memory. And I think there's even been some studies like with rats that have even shown that if they taught certain species of rat a trick in London, you would wonder, well, would the same species of rat in Los Angeles carry the same trait? And there is some evidence to suggest that that's the case. So I was just wondering, it's one of the most things that I think that's one of the reasons that I think I'm so drawn to religion or archetypes of like saviors and stuff. It's the collective unconscious. I think it exists in all of us, and it's a really big driving force on what motivates our lives. That's all.
Well, so when you look at the examples in rats, do you take that as evidence of
That it could be possible even in a more macro sense with humans, that humans can actually maybe that there could be knowledge that could be hereditarily transferred, not
right?
just through the biomechanism parts of something outside of that.
Right. I guess I'm just trying to understand because when I see that mechanism, I interpret that as strictly biological, right? Like
Mhm.
I know some of the things, or I've seen like some documentaries on it, and um, it's pretty interesting. Like I've
Well,
seen,
but see, like Jung was saying, Jung took it to even a greater thing is that he would say that some of these Grail myths and all of that stuff, this is something that's been passed down through, you know, thousands of years that are deeply ingrained in each of our subconscious, whether you guys are believers or not, you still have that kind of collective unconscious, human collective unconscious that goes through all of this. That's all. I was just wondering if you,
yeah, I
I
don't
think,
have much experience with it,
yeah,
fortunately. But
that's all right.
um, do you guys mind if we take a quick bio
No, not at
break?
all. As a matter of fact, I mean, I don't even know if you guys want to talk to me anymore. You may be done, and like I said,
Oh,
you can.
oh, I have more. I mean, I think
Hey,
these conversations are interesting, so I would be
yeah,
interested in hearing more about even this idea of collective consciousness
yeah.
that you
Well,
believe in. Yeah.
well, my wife came home, so let me give her a kiss and get a drink of water, and that's. Can we come back in a couple minutes?
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's come back
Let's take a
in
little break.
5 or so minutes.
You got it.
All right. Hi, everyone. We're just back from a short break. And I guess let's just jump back to it. Maybe you could repeat your question, Ben?
Yeah, I just had a question for Irene. You said that I wanted to hear what your definition of God is. If you,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess my definition of God, it can be summed up in saying that God equals all energy, because I think that's as simple as it is in my view. I mean, if I want to state it really quickly. And by that I just mean I think that everything that anything is made up of is essentially energy. And so I just see it as God is all of that energy,
Is
equals
there an
everything.
overall consciousness to this energy?
No. I don't think that there needs to be. I don't think that God in this way needs to have any, let's say,
So you're just saying nature's God, that stars are God, planets God, leaves are God.
I'm saying the sum of everything
That
is
is,
equals to God, right? So yeah, in a way that we would all be a piece of this of energy, right? We're a piece
but
of it
it's
all, so we're a piece
completely
of God.
impersonal and it's going on its own little whatever way it's
Yes.
going to go on. Right.
Yes.
Okay.
And so I think a problem I have in general with religion and the way they define God is if I were to say there was a God, it would definitely not, in my viewpoint, have any characteristics whatsoever like a human being. It wouldn't have, in my view, it wouldn't have emotions like human beings. It
Oh, of
wouldn't
course not.
be,
Yeah.
thinking in
No,
any
no, no.
way like a human
Yes,
being.
yes, yes.
So then why would it take any interest? It wouldn't take any interest at whatsoever in causing any positive or negative outcomes for human beings. It wouldn't bring in anything for human beings
But it's an
to
easy
help
jump
them or to
to
hurt them.
think that if there is an omnipotent person that they could involve themselves. I mean, I hear all the scientists now talking about, oh, we could be in a simulation, that people are going to all the trouble of, this simulation, which is the universe. Well, if that's true, why couldn't God be personally involved with my life? If he's really if you're really saying he's everything in the universe, why couldn't he take a personal involvement in somebody's life? Or why, just question.
I guess it's just why would he take a personal involvement in any aspect, because why would something that is so large believe that anything is right or wrong? Like you wouldn't see anything as, in my viewpoint, I couldn't see that you would see anything as something that is right or something that is wrong if you can't make a determination, because you wouldn't have binary thinking. You wouldn't be able to make a determination, oh, this thing is correct, this thing is wrong. So since this is something I agree with, then I will send down this person to help this cause. But no, you wouldn't have a definition of that. In fact, everything would be equal to the same in your viewpoint. So you wouldn't even, why would you make any interventions in any aspect of the universe?
Well, I think that's the difference between, first of all, my answer would be God is love. And I mean that in the truest sense, that the emotion or whatever that we perceive as love or is the closest experience to will knowing God. Beside that, though, in response to yours, I would say the exact opposite. God is order from disorder. I think the fact that there is order is God, and that it's purposeful. That's all. I just don't think it's random. I think that the fact that there is order in this universe, the fact that there is a universe, the fact that there's something rather than nothing is proof of God's existence. And it's not a big intellectual jump for someone in a human puny existence to say, well, if that's possible, then it's also possible that there also could involve itself with every living creature throughout his creation on a personal level, if he wanted to.
So this goes back to our conversation about entropy.
Mm-hmm.
I have an experiment that you can run on your table that you can have a seemingly random process have order come out of it, right? And that's seen in statistics and physics all throughout. But I wish I had it with me. It's basically the experiment is you have a bunch of tiny ball bearings, and then you have a tree of pegs like what's that TV show? Poingo or something. I forget what it. Palinko.
I know what you mean.
Right. So you have all these pegs that are random paths that a ball bearing could take, and then they all add up on the bottom, right?
Okay.
And once you flip this, they'll take this random path, and basically every time you'll get a normal distribution, right? You'll get a pattern. A pattern will arise out of the randomness is what I'm trying to say.
God is the pattern.
Right. So that's what I was going to ask, right? It's like if you run this experiment and you create order from randomness, are you God in that instance? Is God the one putting his hand into that, or like how do you perceive that
I
experiment?
think it's possible that God experiences the universe through me. It's possible. I don't know. I mean, it may be that that's the whole purpose of my existence or your existence, is that because God or this intelligence wants to experience the universe, and the only way that is possible, the only way to experience joy, and the only way to experience any of the major, I mean, anything you want to, would be through creatures that he created, so he could, I don't know.
Well,
I
so
think it's a big divine dance.
can I ask you some questions about your definition of God? Like,
Sure.
do you believe that God is all powerful?
In the sense that all powerful. I don't know what you mean, but yeah, I guess, yeah, sure.
Well, just because this is what I hear in other
Yeah,
religious circles, like all
yeah, I know. I hear
powerful.
that. I hear that term slung around all the time, and I never have done it and said it in my life. But I mean, I guess he's omnipotent. I guess in the sense that, yeah,
Yeah, that's what I mean. Omnipotent
all-knowing.
and omnibenevolent, right?
Right.
All knowing and all
Well,
good.
yeah. Well, yeah. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole of benevolence and stuff. I've watched enough Hawkins and those guys and Dawkins to not get trapped in that. But yeah, do I think that God is benevolent? I believe that yes, God is. I believe that God is good, and
Okay.
nothing that's outside of. I think that's the reason that God is, according to the Hebrew scriptures, God is perfect goodness, and anything that is not that can't even exist in its presence, because the nature of that nature of perfection, of goodness, can't abide anything that's not evil. And that's where Jesus comes in, allows redemption through him, because he was perfect.
Right. So, I mean, I do have some serious issues with that
Please.
interpretation, but that's a side point, right? So we don't have to
Okay.
go into that at the moment. But the all powerful does play into this. Is like, if you believe that God is all powerful, why would he
Suffering.
need to create creatures to experience this at all, right? Like, if like having an accurate conception of what having infinite power means,
Right.
I think
I think
a
that
lot of people get lost.
Sure. I think that's the age-old question that everybody asks of people of faith, and the only answer I would give you is this is the like the antidote of Nova, the guy walking his dog, and rabbit jumps out, dog chases the rabbit, loses his dog, he's heartbroken. He's like, how did it happen to be? I just happened to be there, and then he's, of course, some nice young lady brings his dog back, meets her, they fall in love, it's all great. But then after they get married one day, he's rushing home to see her and gets in an accident, gets T-boned. And he's thinking, oh, shoot, how did I happen to be at that, all that stuff. But bottom line is, he gets an MRI and they find a cancer they would have never found if they hadn't had the MRI. So, what's evil from good is what God does. And I can tell you that sometimes the worst things in my lifetime, God has turned around, or something has turned around in my life to make it positive. And so the suffering that we see on the planet, I don't understand it. I don't understand. I can't give you no explanation, but I just have confidence, and this is where it comes in faith, that whatever the purpose of our collective human suffering, humanity suffering, is going to be beneficial for us in some future time, as you guys, that was my explanation.
Yeah, so I actually want to bring up a point about what you just said, because I want to see what you feel about this. But the way that I see this is that I can still interpret all of that as randomness. And the reason I say this is because the way that our biology works is that we can interpret any event. We can interpret and have a perspective of that event as negative or positive. So in your experience,
People of faith choose to believe. Yes, we choose to believe. No, we know there's no, but and you can't prove the negative either, that there's no, that this is not. I mean, you can say that it could be caused from it, and I agree, but could be caused from the other. I'm just saying that if I believe that the fact that there is some order to this universe, I know it's simplistic to scientists, but when we say that it looks like there's a designer behind it, I work for an ophthalmologist. I've worked I know everything there is practically about eyes, and there's universities, you know, specifically to portions of the eye, not just the eye, just portions of the structure. It's easy to see design in that, I mean, you can say it's random and all that, give me, like I said, 13 billion years, a lot of things can happen. 13.8 billion years, I believe that, even though I think it's 14.7, but we'll see about that. Uh, I just don't, I choose to believe. That's it. And you're right. It's a choice. It's a choice. And there's no other way around it, saying that my choice is more logical than a scientist would be. It's not. It's absolutely not. But I have, what else? Like I said, I don't have faith to be an atheist.
Yeah, I
It
mean,
takes a lot of faith to be an atheist. It really does, I think.
well, why? Why do you say that? What do you mean by that?
Because I think that if you really are an existentialist and you believe that this is all just, an absurd, um, random joke, not even joke, but just randomness, and that's really the true meaning of existence. It takes a lot of faith not to kill yourself. It takes a lot of faith not to think that there's, I mean, and I know people can motivate themselves. A lot of people, non-faith, can motivate themselves, but I just think it's a darker picture than 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 my subconscious tells me is the truth about the universe, and that's all I can really go by. Is like by, it's not an inner gut Trump feeling. It's a more deeper thing than that. I
So
don't
why is
know.
that picture darker?
I think it's just because mine has hope. Mine has love at the end of it. The end
Hope
of
of what?
the hope of existence beyond this plane. That there is probably existence. I do believe in life after death. I don't know exactly how that works. I think it's kind of probably like a combination of the Buddhist idea of the stamp in the mud, where whatever your collective karma is, hits the next life, makes an imprint, that goes on. Somehow everything else is either not transferable or whatever. I don't think our petty egos are transferred, but I do believe that something is transferred, energy, in some way. And
Well,
and
so
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, sorry to interrupt, but so
No,
that
go ahead.
seems indistinguishable from my viewpoint. If you're just saying it's like energy, if you're saying it's energy that's transferred, I would agree with
No,
that.
I don't
But
know
if
what. I'm not just trying to make an analogy. I don't know what's transferred, but it would be like an analogy of, if you had a seal and if you hit mud, something's transferred. The pattern is transferred, but nothing's transferred.
yeah, no,
So,
I agree. But I'm saying like if if it gives you more hope that there's
right.
something after life, are
Sure.
you implying that it's like some part of your consciousness is
I think it's
existing?
some part of my unconscious. I mean, I think every human being has an unconscious fear of death, or desire for, immortality at some basic level. That's the collective unconscious. You cannot run from that, guys. It's ingrained in human beings, and you may overcome it with science and fact or whatever, but in your dreams, it comes up. You'll have dreams where you're swimming in the unconscious pool of whatever. You can't get out of it. You're lost. And that's those kind of things coming up to us and saying, hey, as much as you think you have it all together, we have it all figured out, we don't. And
Yeah, I mean, I love dreaming. I would say that in my dreams, I when I was a child, I had a lot of, I guess, dreams that like this, I guess, distressing dreams where I'd be like stuck and I couldn't move.
mhm.
And then it's interesting that I started learning to fly in my dreams so that I could escape this inability to walk, right? So it's kind of like, even in my dreams, I find it interesting to explore that space and find a way to remodel it,
Were you
right?
semi-lucid or not when you fly? Like a
Yeah, yeah.
lucid
Then
dream?
it became to a point when I got older where I had lucid dreams and I could
Right,
control my
right.
dreams, basically
Hmm.
what would
Yeah.
happen. And I flew to outer space, and
Hmm.
it's interesting, right? And I
Yeah.
mean, I want to know more about this biologically and these
Yeah.
experiences that people have as well. But I guess going back to this picture, I guess that I have, I guess you could call it an atheistic picture or whatever. To
It gives you
me,
comfort of some way, does it?
it does. It's not at all negative at all.
Yeah.
I think this recycling, I agree with you, and of energy, you maybe we're like you say it's of unconscious, and I say yeah. I mean the energy that is recycled is unconscious in my viewpoint.
Hmm.
So I agree with you that it's something that's recycled. I don't think that we necessarily this form dies off, right? But
Right.
those molecules, those particles go on to become something different.
Right.
And in that way, I'm recycled. In that way, I don't think I'm ever dying. I'm never ending.
Right.
And this is just a small little experience that I have. And I guess what, even though people like to say, oh, if you're an atheist, that means you look at life and you think it's meaningless. And to me, it's not at all. The meaning that I
Right.
have is this short, however long it is. Let's say it could be a millisecond in terms in another viewpoint. But this short existence I have is, in fact, meaningful. I enjoy the experiences that I have. I'm always seeking new experiences because I want to experience as much as possible in this state.
Hmm.
And I want to help others feel the best that they can as well. I want them to have a maximum experience. I don't want people feeling allowing the baggage of their pasts and traumas in their past to hold them back from being able to live life, right, and experience as much as they can in the state that they are in now. And that's what I find hopeful personally, that I could extend this ability for, us humans
Yeah.
to to have an experience. Basically, that's what I see this as an experience, and then the next cycle will experience something else, whether it's conscious or not.
Yeah. Well, I put hope in the fact that I don't know. Maybe it's a bronze. I know it's a Bronze Age myth, but
What's the
the
Bronze Age
Bronze Age.
myth?
That's when Jesus was alive,
Oh, okay,
around
gotcha.
that time. Um, but if you believe in him, if you believe that he's historically correct or not, he really was a person and all that stuff. One of the things that he did say was that after the next life, there is a next life, and he says that and that you go somewhere, wherever you want to debate that, but he gives us, and I think that's true, and I don't know how that happens, but I think that the belief in him somehow is going to keep my consciousness coherent in the past, in the next life, and it's not going to be like a lot of Tibetan Buddhists believe, where there's the Tibetan Buddha Buddhadecas. You go through all these levels of the next life until you go whatever. I believe that if you believe in this individual, that you can actually choose the next spot you go into in your existence, and that would be with him and people of like mind who have. And that's a big jump for a lot of people. That's not for everybody, but that's total faith. But
Yeah. So I mean, this is where I get into major concerns about the omnibenevolence, right?
okay,
Is like, so is this like how you conceive of heaven then? Is like,
yes,
right, right. So the having this
I
belief
conceive of
in,
heaven as a
yeah,
way of, yeah, just the afterlife happens to us all, what it is. But this person says that if you try to follow these precepts, if you're self-sacrificing, giving, loving to the best that you can, believe that that is what God wants for all humanity, that you can actually not have to pick yourself up by your own bootstraps. You can actually determine the next multiverse, the next place of your next destination. And that's a big step for anybody I know. But I think the fact that I don't think I mean, you must believe then that sleep is just sleep, right? There's no consciousness. There's just nothingness, right?
In sleep?
Yes. I mean, in the afterlife. You,
Oh,
you say you go
well, I
back into
mean,
the greater unconscious or whatever, but you don't believe there's any consciousness at all after you're mortal.
well, I can tell you what my possible ideas, which if I did more research, it may dispel this perfectly and not be true
Yeah,
whatsoever. But so you've probably heard of the chemical DMT, right?
of course.
That I don't know if you've ever tried that. You
No,
said you've
I have not.
experimented with a drug. I
No, no,
haven't either, so I
no.
don't know.
But I know the gist
But
of what it does. Yes.
yeah, so you know, when you die, there's like a flood of this chemical that goes
It's
in your mind.
released, right?
Yeah, and people who have done this before have said that they've experienced big changes in time where they could feel like their time has stretched a lot, even though maybe the experience was 10 minutes. It felt like it could have been days, weeks, months, years, right?
Right.
So, my interpretation of this is that our brain is created maybe that at the point of death, this large influx of chemicals can be released. And so that then we can experience whatever experience we need for ourselves, depending on what our belief system was throughout our
Right.
life,
Hmm.
that then can help us die, basically. So that could be maybe for
Yeah.
someone who is an atheist, blackness, right? The end.
Right.
Maybe someone who believes in God, or like you say, it could be
Right.
like you are experiencing this whole idea that spans, I don't know how many years of time, that
Yeah.
you're in a state like heaven, right?
Yeah.
Some
Right.
people, maybe they have a lot of guilt from their past that they have to work through. Then they have this time where they're working through that.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting too, the Jewish idea is not there is no heaven. The Jewish faith doesn't believe in heaven. They believe in that there's a resurrection after death. So your body is laid into the ground and you sleep until the end of time, when then you're resurrected, and then you just live another life, maybe
Hmm.
eternal life, but it's just another life. So they don't even believe in heaven.
Okay,
So throw
that's
that in
interesting.
throw
Yeah,
that
that's
into
good.
the mix. See, because
Yeah, I mean, that even seems a little more consistent in terms of my idea of, our particles are going to form into something new, and maybe this is the state where you're saying you become a new life at some point, right?
yeah, I have
If
no
there's
idea.
infinite time, then at some point, those particles could come together to become another conscious being. Who knows, right?
And just in the sense that maybe we all go back to the great unconscious and we're reincarnated from a great pool of consciousness that just keeps recycling. It's possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to think about all the possibilities, right?
Yeah,
Interpretations of what it means to be alive and living, and
yeah. But like I said, I think the fact that there's something rather than nothing, that there's order rather than disorder, gives me hope that that the deepest yearnings of my unconscious, and I think the most of humanity's unconscious, may be from some actual not only need but actual reality that exists in the universe. That there is a loving. That was one of the things I did like about speaking back, cycling back to the Moonies, that their idea that God was, if you wanted to know what God was like, think of the love of a parent, not of a husband or a wife, but as a parent. And I thought that was very apropos, in the sense that um, that's why we wanted to become perfect parents. Because you think about, if we really are God's children, or children of the Creator, then He loves us. And if He truly loves us, like I would love just how I love Joey, or just with the love that's just, or any of my children, is just beyond words, then if there's a Creator that actually can love, which I believe, then I believe that He actually has something wonderful for me in the next life. That's why I want to be buried with a fork when I go, because it always reminds me that dessert's coming. So when I'm in the grave, I'll have my fork, because I know the best is going to be next.
you have a special fork set up for the day.
No, I don't. You're welcome to buy me one engraved or something.
It's it's a kind of dark. Here,
Yeah.
here you go. Your special
No,
grapefruit.
my son's just looking at me. Oh God, why did I invite him on?
No,
No.
that's not what I think.
Well, I see you're learning the thoughts of a simpleton. How
A
No.
simple.
a simple man. How the non-scientific of us think, the religious, the crazies, the wackos, the
No,
faith-based.
you shouldn't say that about
Oh,
yourself.
I'm just, yeah, tongue in cheek. But I think that's what a lot of people think about people of faith, and that's what's a shame too. It's like I watch a lot of shows on TV, and it's always the butt of the joke is that the person of faith is an idiot, isn't it? Isn't they?
Yeah, that's
Aren't
not
they?
right.
And it's always the case, that they're the most intolerant, and they're the dumbest, and and there's a lot of people of faith in this country that are well informed, and you know, and we're not just all blindly following anybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think the issues with the media too, the minority, loud minority people who
Right.
have extreme views are the ones
Right.
that you hear about in
Yeah,
media.
I think most Christians cringe when we hear a lot of things that are done in the name of various churches. So, but what do you do?
Well, we have to, get everyone's stories out, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that that's not how we should present religious people, and I agree that that many Christians and religious people don't follow the doctrine blindly. But my problem is, I guess, that many people do follow it almost
No,
as
I
if
know.
it's literally, or it doesn't have to be like the Bible. It could be
No, I
following
know.
anything dogmatically.
Right.
My problem is like that ideas have power, and if we can't criticize those ideas,
Oh, absolutely. No.
then they're going to
Religion.
perpetuate suffering for many people.
Yeah, I agree. No, religion should be not on a pedestal. Religion should be criticized, and like I said, I've done that, tactfully all throughout my religious life. Is wherever group I was, I would go to meetings at church groups, and there would notoriously be somebody there to slam the Mormons. And I would just say, really, I know they have crazy thoughts, but look at some of the stuff we're saying too, guys. If we're really gonna hold that standard, then let's turn the mirror on ourselves. And I think if you do that, you can keep your spirituality realistic. But like I said, I think the main thing is I was able to take what I learned from Zen in sitting in meditation. You can still take that over to the Christian faith and sit with who Jesus is, and that's a lot of times that's usually it's almost like a combination. It's like when you're in Zen Buddhism, they would give you what was called a koan, an unsolvable mystery, and you would supposedly meditate on that until you would have some breakthrough, where either you go crazy, but you would come up with an answer that the master would accept because he knew it was right, because it was from a certain spot and it wasn't one you could think up, And it's like I think that you can take that to who is Jesus, and you can just sit with that, as I do. And it's like, I don't know who he is. I want to know who he is, for sure, or who is God. And you can just sit with that idea. You don't have to like project. I'm going to try not to project my own ideas on what God is. Everybody knows to even have that conversation. And or even, the Muslims don't even, they know we can't even conceive of what that being's thought processes would be like if we're a creature like us, as humans. There's no way we can even think on the same,
Hmm.
level.
Dimension,
So
maybe?
yeah, you can. There's just no way for us. So I don't know. Just that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's why it's hard for me too, even is trying to, the characteristics that you do give to this creature, but
Right.
you can't even really understand it,
Right. Well,
right?
that's why the
Because,
Buddhists always do it in the negative. They never talked about what God is, but what He isn't, or what. So they would always do everything in the negative, and so
gotcha.
because it's easier to describe what He's not than what He is, what it might.
Yeah.
I feel sorry talking about a creature that Joey's let go. Well, He's talking about a little man in the sky. It doesn't exist.
No, we talk
No,
about this
but
stuff too sometimes, so.
so
So if
I'll
I'm
tell
an
you
atheist,
one of the
then that means that
uh-huh.
after that, in your view, me as an atheist, I wouldn't be able to have that choice to decide what to be next because I didn't
Oh, I know
follow
you're
Jesus.
going somewhere. I just don't know where. I just don't. Yeah, no, I don't. Yeah, I don't know how it works. I mean, your consciousness may stay somehow. Maybe consciousness does somehow trans. Some part of our consciousness at least does transfer on to the, a next life. But I don't know. But
I guess my question is, why is it fixed for those who follow Jesus, but not necessarily maybe those who follow the kind of ideals and values, but
no,
maybe didn't
no,
specifically follow Jesus, the
no.
name?
I think I'm just thinking of a specific scripture that said,
Okay.
um, "You will be where I am today." When Jesus was on the cross at the time of his death, there were two criminals supposedly next to him, and one mocked him and one asked for forgiveness and believed in him at the last moment on the when he
Mm-hmm.
was on the cross. And
Okay.
Jesus told him at that time, "You will be with me in paradise this day." That's the only reason I have any, because like I said, the Jewish tradition does not teach this.
I
But
see.
if you're
Okay.
going to buy into Jesus, you got to buy into pretty much the whole kit and caboodle. You can't just I can't just pick and choose. So if
Mm-hmm.
my master or my rabbi says that I want to be where he is, all I have to do is believe in him. And he's telling a criminal on the cross at the last moment who's done nothing in his life that was good, probably. All he did was confess his face at the end and say, in the face of an almighty God or the face of terror or whatever's coming, I do believe in you and I want to go to your kingdom. And Jesus allowed that. So I figure if I'm buying into the book and that is an offer that he gave to him, I believe that offer exists to any of
Mm-hmm.
us throughout history. That's all. And I think yeah, I don't know. I just somehow have faith that will determine where I will be with like-minded souls. I'm not going to be with, I don't think I'll be with the Buddhists or the Hindus or whatever. Somehow I will be with these like-minded souls. Now they may all be, Hindus may all be in there too. It may just be all people with good and wonderful hearts, and you'll be there, and I'll be, and I hope that's what it is. I have a,
Well, I'll go find you regardless, okay?
yeah,
I'll
please
come find
do.
you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So, what do you think, Joey? Am I crazy?
No, no, it's just it's a different conception than most people have, right? So just trying to process it and make sure
Yeah,
I respond appropriately.
that's
Yeah, it's just because I mean the criticism I would levy to typically Christians, right, who believe in heaven, a
mm-hmm.
traditional notion of heaven is that it seems kind of evil to require belief in God or Jesus before death to gain entrance to heaven, right? But given your conception of it, it's I'm not sure I fully understand it, right? So
Yeah. No, I don't know that I don't know that I would have. I don't think I would put any kind of human limitations on who God would let into wherever. I have no idea. I don't think, for example, that and this will get me in trouble with a lot of Christians, but I do believe that God judges hearts and not doctrine. So if God judges heart and not doctrine, God judges hearts of scientists and atheists and not doctrine. So if at the end of time you've helped the widows, the poor, tried not to lie, you did the best, I have no idea where. I believe that is what really matters. I think that's what really matters. But I don't necessarily know. I do believe that there's different I guess I go back to a scripture, there are many, Jesus said that his father had many mansions. And so if he's saying that God, who he says is his father, who he says he's the literal reflection of in human form, if he's saying there's many mansions in the afterlife, that's got to say that we don't all go to the same place. And I don't know how that works, but I do know how he told me to get where he was. That's easy. Now I don't know how easy it is. It's a lifelong, try, but I know how to get there.
I mean, when he says he has many mansions, does that mean that there's different interpretations of how to define him as well? And depending on your interpretation of defining him, you go to a
context,
different
I don't
mansion?
think that's what it means. I could,
Okay.
I don't have a Bible, but I think in context, what he was referring to was he was speaking to his disciples, and he was saying that, they were saying, they were asking Jesus in the next life, can I be on your right-hand side and on your left-hand side and stuff? And they were trying to fight for jockeying in the next life, and Jesus is like, listen, it's not the way it works, but he did say that in the next life there are many mansions, and if it was not, my father has many mansions, and if it was not so, I would not tell you so. So if he does have any precognition of the next life, which as a Christian we have to believe that he does, that he actually had at some point conscious of his pre-existence, of his divinity at some point. I don't believe he was born with that. I don't think he came out of the womb knowing that but I do believe after his baptism that Jesus became fully aware of his divine nature that along with it, and that's how he was able to tell us from that point on, listen, human beings, it's really simple. It's a simple path to, if you want to know what God would do if he was on the planet, is this: you give until you die. You give until it hurts. And that's it. And it's hard. It's the hardest thing. It's way harder than the Buddhist path or any other path that I ever walked. You give until it kills you. You give your life if you have to. Whether it is not just for your kids, but it's for your neighbor or somebody you may not even know.
What did the others tell you to do?
Others? You mean?
The other religions that you've explored. So you said that what does
think there were
Buddhism
more.
tell you?
Yeah. Buddhism says seek your own salvation. That's it. You sit and seek, and if you seek hard and you want it hard enough, it will come to you. But I couldn't do it. I just didn't see that was really gonna. I didn't have faith that I was one of the chosen ones that was going to be able to reach that state of, I guess it's equilibrium that Buddhists, and I tried. I did pretty well. I'm a pretty even-keeled guy, but Buddhists have no desires, and you can't do that can't do that as a father and a husband and stuff like that. So, but I just think that Christianity teaches a very simple message: is that we just love love your brother as yourself and love God. Now that's the hard part. That's the hard part for you guys. I mean, you can love your brother as yourself just as easy as any Christian or anybody with religious faith. It's just the second part of the great commandments, which was
What's the
love
second
God
part?
with all your heart love God with all your heart and soul.
Well, I mean,
Seek
in
him,
terms of how I define God, I do love that God, right? I mean, I love all existence. I love all
Yeah.
energy.
And I think based on your conversation, you seek him differently than me. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I wondered if that, the multiple, I know you say it's not, but in my view, I would love it to be this because it would be super inclusive if it really was, you define that God and you choose which way you want to define that. And as long as you're true and you feel that love for the ones around you, I feel like that should be enough for you to be able to,
Yeah.
emerge to the next.
I wish I could tell you in 20 years or so whether I was right or not. But I don't think so. Yeah, I'm not sure. This is all speculation. I also have no problem with the idea that really that after my existence, I sleep. And there's just sleep. There's nothing until there's existence again. I was dead for 13.8. Again, I think it's 14.7. 13.8 billion years. I was dead, and now I'm alive. And I could be dead for another 13.8 billion years and be resurrected in a new life or have a new body that looks exactly like this. Somehow it might happen. Who knows? You guys said that throughout there could be all kinds of chaotic things that could happen to make that happen. And I won't know the difference between another 13 billion years if I'm sleeping. But I do believe at some point there's something special about not John's ego, but John and Irene and Joey that exists and that does not disintegrate at death. I think that there's some core part of you that will exist after death. Where that goes, I can't tell you exactly, but I just intuitively, my gut tells me that that's the case.
Well, I mean, it's something that I like to think about in terms of physical terms and, down to the particle level, down to the... I study particle physics, so I like to think about things in terms of particles. But even to the level now where we are in the field, there's a lot of questions about even what any of... I mean, we come to the point that we still need to push forward in terms of the theory, right? So it's even coming to the point of, for me, to kind of think about those questions you're asking, but in a physical way. I don't even have that level of... We don't even in the field have that level of sophistication or mathematics, and I myself not even at the level that the field is. So for me, that's something that I personally am interested in exploring is there how can I, because everyone has a different way of answering that question, right? And it's just that I want to try to answer that question, and I like to hear the way that other people answer the question, like you talking to us now.
Yeah, but you want to come up with your own answer.
And I don't have a problem integrating pieces from all over the place. Like, I guess
well,
for
that's
me,
what I've done all my life.
yeah.
That I kind of from a lot of fields and just trying to put together the basics and strip away the bullshit. Excuse me. I told you I wasn't going to cuss. Strip away
Which is good. You're being critical, right? So that's good.
If you strip away a lot of the basics of most religions, you come down to, there's a lot of simulators. And I think Christianity stands out just differently because it's the only one that actually believes in an actual person as, that's just way different than any other religion that I studied or anything like that. So got to take it all though, like I said. So
why do you have to take it all, I guess?
Well, I mean, I don't take it all in the sense that I don't believe that the New Testament hasn't been altered, word here, two or there. I don't believe it's that kind of, but I do believe that I'm not going to do the modern day pick and choose what I like, just, based on, the way things are in 2020. If Jesus said some pretty radical stuff, and a lot of it's still radical today. You either buy in the whole package of what he was saying, or, for example, I think C.S. Lewis said he was either God or he was the most evil man that ever walked the face of the earth, because he's offering us a promise. He offered us a promise, and if that promise was based on a lie, all of us Christians are going to find out, as St. Paul said, if the resurrection is not true, all Christians' faith is wasted. It's just so.
Yeah, but you wouldn't find out until you die, and then at that point, you can't come back and tell us. So if it was a scam, it's a pretty good scam.
No, exactly. But no, that's what it is. But it's right. So if Jesus is lying to us all, if this person, this rabbi, even existed, and what he said was, then he was the most evil person that ever walked the face of the earth, as far as I'm concerned. But
I don't know. It depends on your outlook on the effects of Christianity on the individual, right? So, like, what if even if you believed in a lie, I think a lot of Christians would say that their
It's
faith
changed
causes
the
them.
planet for better.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know that. I guess, I mean, in that sense, it's true. Myths, have power. And if Jesus myth, then it's true. It changed. It did change, without it. But I think it goes beyond that, though.
Well, yeah. Clearly, you wouldn't be happy believing in something to be false, right?
Right.
But
Of course not.
That's the way that you get to that answer. The only tools I see available that are up to the task are science, right? If you care about truth and you want to know for certain what you believe is accurate, the most powerful tools that I think you could use are the scientific method.
How do you apply that to this?
Well, it depends. I mean, you'd have to give me like a specific example.
Okay. I don't know. Let's see. So, state your original point again, and maybe I can come up with an out here. You're saying that,
if you want to verify that what you believe is true,
right? But
the way you go about determining truth, the best way to do that is with the scientific method, right?
Yeah, but
in my opinion. Right?
Yeah.
So,
but are numbers even real?
Well, if you're going to exist in the world, you could take that as
real.
No, right. I mean, my point is if you're going to exist in the world,
right?
Yeah, you have to.
How do you prove any kind of philosophical thing with science, though? I mean, you can do, and I mean, I apply those kind of things to my faith. I've read all the texts on, whether Jesus existed and what kind of textual things were probably changed and what original other gospels have been left out. I mean, I'm not ignorant about the subject, so that's a scientific approach, and that's all I can do. But I can't prove the veracity of Jesus's claims. No one can. But I have, in my own way, scientifically or methodically approached any of the faiths that I even tried to practice. So that's scientific approach, but I don't know how I could go past any of that.
I guess the way that I would like to at some point in my life, which who knows I'll ever get there, would be to use a theoretical physical model with a mathematic that makes logical sense from step by step to explain phenomenon like what we were talking about before. Now I forgot.
DMT.
Well, that would be a way that we could talk about, okay, what is going on in the brain and death. That would be something that we could look at. Right. But if you get down to
that's probably similar to the experiences a lot of the monks and saints have had. They probably had a release of that through intense, physical, either yogic or meditative states. They probably are able to at least touch those. And I believe that that's true, but it's also true that they're able to, if you haven't been in those states, who knows what knowledge they were able to actually bring back that's true.
Yeah, so I mean, yes, I think there's obviously, even with mathematics and these theories, a lot of theories we have in quantum mechanics, there's still a question as to what, there's philosophical questions as to the meaning of the theory, right? So we are lacking in those interpretations. I guess what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that when we get to the point where we have this theory, I'm not saying that for sure can, dismantle all the ideas that religion has yet. But it's another interpretation, right? And I think that because it's a physical interpretation, something that's consistent with our physical reality, that's something that I gravitate towards, something that it seems a little more concrete. Yeah. Not saying that the others I will 100% dismiss, because I'm always questioning, right? I always want to get as much information as possible. And I think it's an interesting avenue, is this like physical reality avenue.
I just, if it was quantifiable and with the right scientific tests, that would be really interesting.
The testing is the issue, right? Like, we're getting down to the point where theories that we have aren't even testable at this point, even at the LHC, the Large
Yeah.
Hadron Collider.
Yeah.
So that is a barrier that we have to overcome in the physical community.
Speaking of the collider, did I hear news that they're thinking of building another
Yes.
one in Europe?
Yeah, they're building one that's going to be able higher luminosity, so like higher energy interactions. So
Yeah.
that is exciting. So we'll be able to test areas and theories that we haven't been able to test yet. So
Yeah. Wow. Well, I think the most exciting thing I'm looking forward to is I'm glad I'm going to live long enough to see is the James Webb go up. So I'm really excited about that.
the what?
The James Webb telescope.
Oh,
Yeah. So that's going to be launched, I believe, either late this year or early next year.
Yeah, I don't know the details, but soon.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot more powerful than the Hubble.
it says March 30th, 2021.
Yeah. So I hope it all unfold nicely. There's got to be a lot of moving parts because they got to send it out, and then I think all of the solar panels have to just fold out.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, basically the way you make a bigger telescope, right, is to fold it up, right?
Yeah.
And so that when you launch it
Yeah.
into space, it unfurls and
Yeah. One of the interesting things I think I heard is that one side could fry an egg and the other side will be like minus 200 something below the telescope. Both the opposite
Oh,
sides are going
wow.
to be extreme different. So that's really got to affect mechanical things. I don't know how you overcome that kind of stuff. So, well,
yeah.
I guess I'll let you guys go unless you have any more questions about something specific. It was sure good to talk to you.
Yeah,
I
it
don't
was
know
nice.
how
It was very nice.
I don't know how much you'll have that would even be worth replaying, but I hope so.
Everything. It was such an interesting conversation.
Well, thank
I'm
you.
very happy that we had a chance to talk and stuff.
Yeah, me too.
Last question, just to
Yeah,
wrap everything up. If
yeah.
you had to, you know, come up with the core, I guess, pieces of your ultimate religion from the experiences that you've had and
Yeah.
knowledge you've collected, what would you say that would be?
The core pieces of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Energy conservation is the first step to any kind of spiritual path. So, do it young, clean living, all that stuff.
Okay.
All that kind of stuff. I think I learned in all the paths that I followed. That's why cults recruit young kids, energy.
Okay.
So, but conservation of energy, um, you gotta critically look at the beliefs. I mean, like I said, I love the Mormons, but I can't believe that there were, I can't believe the Scientology, DC-10 kind of. You guys probably don't even know what I'm talking about. But there's some crazy stuff that's going on out there. So you got to be critical about whatever path you're following. I don't think any path though I've ever found where I believed in 100% of what it is, and I don't think by not believing in 100% of it and still trying to give your all toward the path you're being. I try not to be hypocritical, but I do have found that in my older years now that I'm stuff that um, there's certain things that you got to stand up for. And like I said, the stage of social media where we all know everything about each other and we all, everybody wants to express their opinion about politics, religion, and everything. Um, it's just, you just got to keep it close to the vest. Keep your spirituality close to your heart. Don't wear it on your sleeve, You don't have to act like anybody who acts like they're all that isn't very spiritual. That's why, and even in the times when I haven't been able to have a church that I could go to, my wife's a believer, and our rabbi says that is where there's two or more of you gather, I'm there. So there's prayers. We always give thanks and simple things that you can do in life just to give thanks. I think that's the greatest thing that you can get from living a spiritual life is that if you can keep that feeling of gratitude in your life, I have had that my whole life. I've just been so thankful. I've realized what a, I don't know, on a unconscious level, I've always realized that what a special life, gift life is, and I've been very grateful, and I'm a cancer survivor now, 5-6 years. And all those
That's great.
days, yeah, all those days that I have seen things and stuff, just, there's no testimony without a test. I've had that test, and Joy was there the night that I was diagnosed with cancer. And I remember that night I thought I was going to die. And I remember at that point, I think I remember looking to my son and saying, Joy, don't worry, take care of Crystal. I believe in Yeshua and I'll be okay. And he probably didn't get it, but I remember saying that to him, and I felt that in my heart, So I'm just so, thankful that God gave me that heart to be grateful. And just thankful for all the stuff that I have, because, that's it. That's
Thank
what it
you.
boils down to. Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming on.
No,
I
thank you,
appreciate
Joey.
you giving us your time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate this. I think it was a great conversation, and it's always good to have someone who has a different,
Yeah.
viewpoint and experience.
Yeah, and that's why, for me, I don't shy away from the challenge of speaking to people who aren't believers in scientists and stuff. And I listen to Dawkins, and I listen to Harris, and I listen to all their arguments. So I don't stick my head in the sand. I'm a believer, but I'm a reasonable believer. And there are those of us, and people out there that are us reasonable believers.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we want to show as well, right? So it's good
Yeah.
that your story is going to be out there, at least, or a few number of listeners. Well, hopefully,
Yeah.
it's more than a few.
Yeah.
We'll appreciate it.
Well, I thank you guys for giving me the opportunity just to talk, and there was a chance to ask you guys questions and stuff. And I just want to again tell you that go guerrilla if you have to. Don't let these guys in the department, whoever is running the physics departments where you are, don't let them beat you down. Just stay empathetic. You guys got a lot of knowledge that you could pass on to kids, of minority kids and women, that could really change this planet. If we have kids that just do fun, if you guys can inspire them to do that, hey, that's wonderful.
Yeah, I'm going to try. That's my mission. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
never going to let it go.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we'll do our best. But
Yeah.
okay, so I'll wrap up the podcast here. If you guys made it this far, thank you for listening. We love you. And go follow us on whatever you're listening to, like subscribe, rate us if you can, and check out our socials in the links below. So thanks for coming on, guys.
yeah, thank you.
Good night.